Esther, we returned to Esther this morning, chapter 7 and 8. Lord willing, next week we'll look at chapters 9 and 10, and then we'll be moving on to Nehemiah is the plan. Good morning, sister. If I didn't get to say good morning to you this morning, forgive me. Good morning. Good morning to you. Esther chapter 7, we begin chapter 7 this morning, so you recall that... Well, we'll just jump right in. Esther has called for a banquet. She's invited King Ahasuerus. She's invited Hammond. Brother Ray, he's the bad guy, right? He's the man that has hatched this plot to kill the Jews and convinced King Ahasuerus that he should issue a decree. And Esther, at Mordecai's urging, is intervening, interceding with the king. Trying prayerfully to save her people. Esther 7, verse 1, King Ahasuerus and Haman now come to the second banquet the next day, 7:1. So the king and Haman came to banquet with Esther the queen. And the king said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, it's called, "What is thy petition, Queen Esther? It shall be granted thee," just as he said before, up to half of his kingdom. "What is thy request? It shall be performed, even to the half of the kingdom." And that's a big, Zach. That's a big statement. Whatever you ask, up to half of all of my kingdom, I will grant it to you, my queen. I would suggest again this morning, that's the Lord working in that king's heart. He said it once, he said it again, he's reiterated this. It's going to be hard for him not to grant her request all the way up to half of his kingdom. Esther answers, finally we see here the big request. Verse 3, Esther the queen answered and said, "If I have found favor in thy sight," he said she has, he's shown her that, "O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request." My life and the life of my people, for we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. As you know, at this point, Ahasuerus knows that. He's issued the decree. He knows at this point Esther is among the people who he has decreed to be killed. "For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, to perish. But if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage." It'd be one thing if we were just sold into slavery. Maybe I could let that go. We'd still be, but we've been... we're given over by your decree to be killed. Ahasuerus, let me try that again. King Ahasuerus, there we go. King Ahasuerus answered, verse 5, and said unto Queen Esther, "Who is he, and where is he that durst presume," pray for the pastor, "in his heart to do so?" And Esther said, "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." Right, he's the one that brought forth this proposal and the rationale. Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. The king, arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden. So Zach, seems like he gets up, he's all flustered, he goes out to the garden, evidently to collect his thoughts. He's going to go out to the garden and collect his thoughts. And while Ahasuerus is out there in the garden, it looks like Haman gets up and he's going to talk to Esther. He's going to have a conversation with her. But in all of the commotion here, it seems like he stumbles over onto her, and Ahasuerus comes back in, and Brother Ray, it looks much worse. This particular scene looks much worse than it is. It seems to be the case that what appears to be a very bad scene strengthens Ahasuerus' resolve that Jewish people aren't going to die, but Haman is. See this here. We'll see beginning verse 7 again. The king, arising from the banquet in his wrath, went into the palace garden. Verse continues now, and Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. He jumps up and he's going to plead with Esther, please intercede for me. Verse 8, then the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen onto the bed, maybe a couch, but bed is a good translation, fallen onto the bed whereon Esther was. Then said the king, will he force the queen also before me in the house? And so this obviously looks to be much worse than it is. And King Ahasuerus, verse continues, as the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And so this looks very bad. Evidently, it does strengthen the king's resolve that, no, the Jews won't be killed, but Haman will be. It was customary to cover the face of one who was about to be executed. And that's a custom that has continued into modern times. If someone was going to be hanged, that's not very common. Even now, if someone is going to be executed by shooting, their face is typically covered, even in modern times. So it's something, a tradition that to some extent has come forward into modern times. In any event, it's clear that his face is being covered because Haman is about to be executed, and very ironically, as you know, upon the gallows that he had constructed, Brother Ray, to execute Mordecai upon. And so, yeah, that's the thing. Now, I look at a verse like this, and you wonder, how is it that he stumbled onto the queen? Sure, it's kind of a chaotic scene, and he comes to understand that he's probably going to be executed as a result of all that happens. And so it's not that hard to think that he could stumble in the midst of all that chaos and trip over onto the queen. But Zach, I just have to wonder for a moment if the Lord isn't at work there, creating a scene, architecting a scene that is going to, as we've said, strengthen the king's resolve that no, Mordecai is not going to be executed, but Haman is. And so, you just have to wonder. Carol, you look at this and you wonder, is the hand of the Lord upon this? Did the Lord nudge Haman to create this scene that would strengthen the king's resolve that Haman would be executed? I don't know, but as we're looking for the hand of God in all these verses, you do have to wonder. And so, verse 9, Harbona, one of the chamberlains, one of the king's servants, said before the king, behold also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, hang him thereon. What great irony, the gallows that Haman had constructed to hang Mordecai upon. Haman will now be hung upon his own gallows. And Zach, you wonder even if the Lord caused Haman to build gallows. That's possible. Lord might have placed that in his heart. Brother Ray, not so that Haman or Mordecai would be executed, but that there would be a convenient place, there we go, for the execution of Haman himself. And so that's the end of chapter 7. It's a short chapter, so let's continue right into chapter 8. Haman is hung, and so events that occur in sort of the immediate aftermath of that. Verse 1, chapter 8, verse 1, on that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman, the Jews' enemies, unto Esther the queen. So not only is Haman not going to execute Mordecai, but he is now executed. He's gone. And so Ahasuerus, and I think this is probably the Lord working still, or again in Ahasuerus' heart, the king gives the house, the home of Haman, to Esther. The verse continues, Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. So she's revealed that she's a Jew. She's revealed her relationship to Mordecai, so that had been unknown up to this point, or evidently just before this point. Now Haman will, Mordecai will come before the king. Is he legally permitted to come? He's not, and he might reasonably expect to be received by the king at this point, but there's a little bit of risk here still. Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her, a relative, a family member. Verse 2, the king took off his ring, which he had taken back from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai, and Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. So it had been given to her. She gives it to Mordecai. Mordecai will now have the house of Haman and the king's ring. And so Zach, he's going to have the responsibility and privilege that previously was that of Haman. And that just seems incredibly unlikely, right? And so the hand of God, again, all over this chapter. I was reminded this week, by the way, that there are actually 2 books of the Bible that do not mention the Lord. This is one of them, obviously. And ladies, I think you played trivia game yesterday, right? I don't know who won. Did your team win, Sister Carol? Right. So good. Praise God. We were testing some of the questions at home, and I told Chris that any question that I can't answer must be too hard, Brother Garcia. And I didn't really say that. I missed some of those hard questions. Some of the questions in the hard box were actually really hard, Brother Ray. They were tough. But one of the questions was, what 2 books of the Bible do not mention the Lord? And Mo had to stop and think about that for a second. I said, well, we're working on Esther, so we know, obviously, the Lord is not mentioned in Esther, even though he's obviously all over the pages of Esther, but there is another one. I had to think about it. Maybe it comes to mind for you, maybe not. I'll give you a clue. It's a book that Solomon evidently penned, and it's not Proverbs. It's not Proverbs. Song of Solomon. Yeah, the Song of Solomon. The bridegroom pretty clearly pictures the Lord, I think. We could conclude that. Brother Ray, my words don't want to come out this morning. You can pray for me up there, brother. For real. We might conclude that, but the Lord is not specifically mentioned in Song of Solomon either. And so that's another book where you can look and say, well, okay, Lord, how are you pictured here? And be asking that throughout that book as well. And so, again, here in Esther, we don't see the Lord mentioned explicitly, but clearly, he is at work. Let's pick it up in verse 3, chapter 8, verse 3. Esther spake yet again before the king and fell down at his feet and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite and his device that he had devised against the Jews. And so now a very clear plea that the decree that the Jews would all die in a certain day, king, please, my husband, please, let us put away this decree. Verse 4, the king held out the golden scepter toward Esther, signifying that it was okay for her to approach. So Esther arose and stood before the king and said, verse 5, if it please the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the things seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his sight. A lot of conditions here, Esther. Let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews, which are in all the king's provinces, more than 100 different provinces throughout the king's empire. And so a very specific request now. But King, if it please you, certainly it please me, would you please reverse this decree? Now, to do that, Zach, that would be a pretty big thing, not a small thing, because this decree has been decreed, and it's gone out by letter carriers, delivery people, into all of the provinces, all throughout the kingdom of Persia, the Persian Empire. This was a large territory, involved a lot of people, and so just the scope and scale of the effort to get that out there the first time, and then to repeat that whole process would take a huge effort to get this new decree all the way across the Persian Empire, Brother Ray. Not a small thing. And then there's the issue of just how does it affect how people view the king? Hey, what's going on with that? You've convinced us that these people are a problem and that we should prepare to kill them all, and now all of a sudden they're okay? I mean, what's up with that? That would cause them to wonder about the king, possibly threatening his rule. And so the fact that he will be willing to do this, and Zach, this is the hand of God also, no doubt moving the heart of the king to do this. Of course, he's protecting the life of his wife in this decree, but this is not a small thing for all of these reasons and maybe more. Verse 6, for how can I endure to see the evil that shall come unto my people, Esther says to her husband, King Ahasuerus, or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kingdom? Then, verse 7, the king Ahasuerus said unto Esther the queen, and to Mordecai the Jew, behold, I have given Esther the house of Hammond, and him they have hanged upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Jews. And so he says to Esther and Mordecai, I'm going to grant you the right to write your own decree, whatever you desire. Whatever you desire is what will be decreed now. That's the hand of God, plainly. Whatever it is that you desire. Verse 8, write ye, both of them, also for the Jews, as it liketh you. Whatever you want this decree to say. That's extraordinary. They were afraid to come before him, just to appear before him, because they might be killed. Now they're, Brother Ray, somehow granted the privilege to issue whatever decree they desire on behalf of the king. Clearly the hand of God. Write ye also for the Jews, as it liketh you, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring, which Mordecai has now received from the hand of Haman. For the writing which is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's ring may no man reverse. Well, perhaps except for the king himself, and that's exactly what he's about to do. He's about to reverse his previous decree. Not a small thing at all. See verse 9. Then were the king's scribes called at that time in the third month, that is the month Sivan, on the 23rd day thereof. We're going to come back to this in a minute. So we know when the first decree was issued, and we know when the timing of the execution of all the Jews was to be, and it was quite a few months. So the Lord evidently had worked in the heart of the king initially to provide a long period of time for something to happen that would reverse the decree, and that's happened. Now there's several months, better part of 9 months actually, between when this decree is being reversed and the time that the Jews were to be executed. So think about that. There's still going to be about 9 months. We'll look at the calculation of that in a minute. Verse 9 continues that it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews and to the lieutenants, the deputies, and rulers of the provinces, which are from India unto Ethiopia, 127 provinces, 127 different provinces of the Persian Empire, unto every province according to the writing thereof, and unto every people after their language. So it had to be in the language of different people throughout this vast area, and to the Jews according to their writing, Hebrew, and according to their language, Hebrew, the language that this book was written in first also. Verse 10, and he wrote in King Ahasuerus' name, he, Mordecai, amazing, sealed it with the king's ring. Mordecai seals it with the king's ring, amazing, and sent letters by posts, postmen, if you will, on horseback, and riders on mules, and camels, and young dromedaries. Camels, and so this is a massive group of individuals and animals that are assembled to go and deliver this new decree. Camels and dromedaries. What's a dromedary? What is that? What is that? Do you know what that? So they're both camels. The word camel, that means camel, and dromedary is a camel also. The two words have a little bit of distinction. The word camel evidently refers to a camel that has two humps, and a dromedary is a camel that has one hump. Vilena, did you ride camels recently? I think you might have. I'm not trying to embarrass you, sister. I don't know what kind of camel that was, but yeah, this would seem to be the difference or the distinction. I have just a quick note. I'll read this here. The word camel generally refers to a certain species. I won't read that. These camels have two humps on their back and are well adapted to cold and arid climates of Central Asia. Whereas a dromedary, which is also known as an Arabian camel, they have a single hump and are primarily found in the hot deserts of the Middle East and Africa. Term young dromedaries in the verse likely refers to these one-humped camels. And so they had two different types that were better suited to one part of the climate that would be a portion of the Persian Empire, and another type of camel that was better suited to a different portion of the empire. It's very interesting. By the way, Ernie, the fact that the Lord has designed, let me try that again. The fact that there are one-hump camels that do better in one climate and two-hump camels that do better in another climate, I think that implies that they're designed by someone, doesn't it? I think that implies that those camels have a designer. It's just very, very interesting. And so the fact that you have the two different types here, when you understand the distinction and the reason for the distinction, just goes to the vastness of the geography here that would have to be covered. To undo this prior decree is a big deal, not a small thing for practical purposes and for political purposes, not a small thing at all. So dromedaries are one-humped camels. That would seem to be what they are, whereas the word camel is typically going to be a two-humped camel. Verse 11, where the king granted the Jews, so this is the decree, the content of the decree, wherein the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the power of the people and province that would assault them, both little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. Let me just read that again. Wherein the king granted the Jews. So in this decree, the king is granting something to the Jewish people throughout the Persian Empire, in every city, to gather themselves together and to stand for their life, to defend themselves, to destroy, to slay, to cause to perish all the power of the people and province that would assault them, both little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. And so the decree that goes out, evidently at the request of Esther and Mordecai, is that the Jewish people will be permitted to defend themselves. Why isn't it simply, hey, the decree that you got before, this is overriding that? Why do you suppose this decree, Brother Ray, kind of goes beyond that and says the Jews have the king's privilege to defend themselves? Any thought, Brother Garcia? Do you have any thoughts on that? Why isn't it just, hey, my prior decree is canceled? This goes beyond that and says the Jews have the king's approval to defend themselves. Any thoughts?
It's difficult to adjust two statements made. Boy, I don't know which way to go with this. It's God's hands all over.
Yeah. The Lord knows what that decree needed to say,
Yeah.
right?
And that's the whole thing. This whole thing is showing us that when it's left to man, they will do evil. They will turn to
Yeah.
their own,
Yeah.
wants and needs.
Yeah.
When God's hands in it, it justifies it.
Yeah. Lord knows exactly what this decree needs to say. He knows exactly. And Zach, he knows, Janet, he knows that, if maybe some people weren't going to receive this new decree, or maybe they weren't going to accept it. They've been sort of sold a bill of goods about the Jewish people, and, no doubt they're all ginned up and getting ready to go out and kill all the Jews. And Lord knows what it would take to protect and to save the Jewish people. And so the decree goes forth that they have the king's approval to defend themselves. And I rather think this had more teeth than anything else that they could have decreed. You understand, if they're permitted to defend themselves, the king doesn't want them to be executed. More than that, they have my approval to defend themselves. It's an extraordinary decree. The fact that, Zach, I don't know if this new decree could be any more the opposite of the old decree. Not only does the king not want them to be killed, but he's granting them special permission to defend themselves. This really couldn't be any more the opposite of the first decree than that. And so the hand of God very clearly, very plainly all over this. See verse 12. Upon one day, in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, namely, this is when the original decree was to be carried out, upon 13th day of the 12th month, which is in the month Adar. So that's restating that end of the year time frame when the original decree was to be carried out. And so we have a timing of the new decree in verse 9, on the that is the month Sivan on 3 and 20th day, and then a reminder of when all the Jews were to be killed in verse 12. And so we could do the math. You can research the meaning of those months and do the math and see that it's almost 9 full months between the time that this new decree goes out and the time that the Jews are to be executed, they're to be killed. There's still 9 whole months left. And stop to think about that. I think the hand of God is all over that too. Why might they need 9 months? Well, you're going to need time for this new decree to get out to the furthest reaches of the Persian Empire. Ernie, camels aren't all that fast, and so they're going to need some time to travel some distance. You're going to need a little bit of time. And on top of that, think about this, Jews are going to need a little bit of time to prepare themselves. The Persians have had some months to get ready to kill all the Jews. Now the Jews are going to have better part of 9 months to prepare to defend themselves. And so I think the hand of God is seen in the timing of all of this, the timing. This new decree permits them to defend themselves, and the timing of it gives them a lot of time, ample time, to prepare for their defense against these enemies. And so I think that's the hand of God. Verse 13, the copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, and that the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. Verse 14, so the posts, the mailmen, that rode upon the mules and camels went out, both the one-humped kind and the two-humped kind, evidently, being hastened and pressed on by the king's commandment. So they didn't just kind of meander out, we'll get there when they get there. They went with haste and delivered the new decree. I think that's the hand of God working in this scene also. And the decree was given at Shushan the palace, right, where the king was. We understand that. Verse 15, Mordecai departs from the palace arrayed in royal attire, which, obviously this is evidence of the hand of God working in all of this also. Mordecai, verse 15, went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, and with a great crown of gold, not a little wimpy crown, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. Who could have ever imagined that? Not too long back, it looked like he would be executed for sure. Now he's ruling over the house of Hammond. Now he has the king's ring that Hammond had. Now he's empowered by the king to issue any decree that he chooses and to seal it with the king's ring. Now he departs from the king in royal garb, royal attire. This very plainly is the hand of God all over this entire situation. Here's the effect. Verse 15 continues, the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. I don't know if that seems very likely to me. That doesn't seem very likely to me at all. And the people of the province, and certainly the people of Shushan, they've been turned against the Jews. They're getting ready to kill them all. And now this new decree goes forth, and the people are rejoicing and they're glad. I'm pretty sure that's the hand of God at work in the hearts of the people. Also the Jews, verse 16, the Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. I have a note from Dr. Sorensen on the word that's translated light here. The sense of the word translated light, it's aura, can have the idea of happiness or prosperity in contrast to the trouble of darkness. So it's light contrast with the trouble of darkness. It's joy. The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. Yeah, they were happy, but they also experienced, they were honored by the people as well. Not only are these people not preparing to kill them, they're demonstrating honor to them. Can the Lord do that? Can the Lord do that? Yeah, He can move on people's hearts and cause them to do anything that He desires. Listen, can God still work in people's hearts today? Can He? I'll give you just a little thing. It's little compared to this big thing. We were getting ready to sell our truck recently, and there was a man that was interested in it, but I really didn't think that he'd be willing to pay what we thought the truck was probably worth. And in fact, I'd been told that he probably wouldn't by someone who works for him. And so I just prayed. I said, Lord, if you would have us to sell this vehicle to that man, if you would you move in his heart to cause him to give us a fair price for that vehicle? Can God do that? Yeah. And so I told that man what we would accept for the vehicle. And he said, yeah, okay, that's good. It's just, I just had to stand there and marvel at that. Lord, thank you. God can move in hearts to accomplish his purposes still today. And that's a little thing. But sometimes the Lord uses, tiny little things like that to remind us that he's still very much in the business of working in hearts and moving hearts to accomplish his purposes. He really is. And so I'll just urge you this morning to bear that in mind. You need the Lord to work in someone's heart. Ask him to. Lord, please work in this person. If that's your will, Lord, please turn that person's heart. Turn that person's heart to your will. Verse 17, in every province, in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land, this is so interesting. Many of the people of the land, what are the next two words? Read it aloud with me, everyone, please. Many of the people of the land became Jews. They converted, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. Not only are they not preparing to kill the Jews, when this new decree goes out, many of them convert. They become Jews. That's extraordinary. The hand of God all over the scene from top to bottom. Dr. Sorensen has a note here. He says, moreover, as a result of the clear working of Jehovah God on behalf of his people, many Gentiles across the Persian Empire became Jewish proselytes, new converts to Judaism. It's extraordinary. It was so obvious to these people throughout the empire that their God was working on their behalf. They said, hey, let's just join them. We don't want to kill these people. We want to join up with them and come to their God. That's extraordinary. And so the hand of God is all over this. Zach, seems pretty clear to me that God was accomplishing his purposes, saving his people, for sure, saving his people that had not yet come back from the captivity, and a lot of them probably never would or never did. Their descendants will come into the promised land in the millennium. We know that, but many of them weren't going to come back. But the Lord protected them nonetheless. He protected them and used their protection to cause others to come to himself. That's amazing. That's amazing. Could the Lord use trials in our lives today to bring people to himself? This is a big trial for all the Jewish people throughout the entire Medo-Persian Empire. Could he use a trial in our lives? Could it be that a lost person might look upon our lives and see God at work in a big trial in our lives and say, boy, I would like to know a little bit more about the God who's obviously at work in your life. Could that happen today? Sure it could. And so we do well to pray, Lord, however you desire to work in this trial, please do, work in my heart, grow me. But Lord, if you have bigger purposes that are beyond me, for this trial. If you would have people to see you at work in my trial for some period of time, Lord, here I am. Take me, use me, work in this trial that people would see you at work in my life. And Lord, if you give me the privilege to tell them about Christ, well, I sure will. Let's pray. Father, thank you for permitting us to see your hand at work in this extraordinary situation in Esther. Lord, you obviously were at work in hearts of Ahasuerus and people all throughout the empire in the most extraordinary way. Lord, you're able to protect your people. We praise you and thank you for that this morning. You're able to protect your people in the most extraordinary way. Lord, you're able to work in the hearts of others to accomplish your good purposes for us. Lord, help us not to forget that, but to be people of prayer, who pray and seek your will and pray, Lord, work in the hearts of others to accomplish your good purposes for me. Lord, thank you that we can see that you brought many people to yourself through this great trial of the Jewish people. Lord, no doubt, as people see you at work in our personal trials today, you reveal yourself. And so, Father, I pray today, Lord, that would be the case. Lord, as people see, we pray, Lord, I pray that people would see you at work in our trials. And Lord, that it would be obvious to them that you are real. And Lord, that would create an opportunity for us to share Christ with them, to introduce them to our Savior. Lord, to tell them how they can be saved and know the same God at work in their own trials. Lord, I thank you this morning that your grace is sufficient in the midst of every trial. Lord, I thank you this morning that you promise to never leave us nor forsake us in the midst of trials. You're enough for us, Lord, and you're at work accomplishing all of your purposes. Our growth may be just reaching others through our trials. Lord, give us hearts that would be the case, that people would see you at work in our trials. Father, I love you. I thank you. I pray all of this now in Jesus' name. Amen. I want to take a minute and say this to each and every one of you. Thank you for being in Sunday school. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being here this morning. It means a lot to me and no doubt to the Lord also. See you back shortly.